point pains may be there, the starting of this syndrome. Later on, full conduction may be blocked and leading to the numbness or the anesthesia or paresthesia of the 3.5. Then, so these are the muscles. And what else enters here into this is the artery. So on the other side, the ulnar artery comes, and on the radial side, radial artery comes from the arm into the wrist. Ulnar and radial artery towards the radius, radial, and both are the branches of brachial artery. And where is the level of the bifurcation or the division of the brachial artery into radial and ulnar? That's very, very important. So brachial artery bifurcates at the level of neck of radius. Neck of radius, write down. Not at the head of the radius, not at the level of tuberosity of the radius. Underline. Neck of the radius is the level of bifurcation to radial and ulnar artery. Then what else entering into this palm is the ulnar nerve. Ulnar nerve enters from the ulnar side, accompanied by the ulnar artery, and it enters in front of the carpal bones, but it lies lateral to the pisiform. It lies lateral to the hook of the hamate, while it is passing above the flexor retinaculum. Both the ulnar artery and the ulnar nerve, they pass above the flexor retinaculum. Only median nerve passes below. Ulnar nerve and the ulnar artery passes above the flexor retinaculum, and these both artery and the nerve, they are retained by a small slip of the fascia of the hand. So this is the skin superfascia, and this is the yellow color superfascia, and this is the deep fascia. So from the deep fascia, a small slip covers the ulnar artery and the ulnar nerve above the flexor retinaculum and fix their anatomical position, and they are not slips laterally or medially. So this small condensation is called the volar carpal ligament. Called volar carpal ligament. So this ulnar nerve lies medial in position, note it, and artery lies lateral. Because medially, there lies the hook of the hamate bone, and this hook of the hamate bone touches the ulnar nerve, but not the artery. So artery is away from the bone. Safe supply is there. Nerve may be pressed, because nerves, they are already, nerves are touching the bones. Axillary nerve, radial nerve, ulnar nerve. These nerves are touching the humerus. There is no problem. So nerves, they are very, very proximal or close to the bones in the human body. They may be applied related to it, that whenever that bone will be fractured, that nerve is liable to be injured, leading to the sign and symptoms, maybe motor or maybe sensory, depending upon the nerve which is supplied. So here also, while the nerve is passing just medial lateral to the hook of the hamate, this nerve is may be pressed. In continuous driving of the motorcycle for 4 to 5 to 6 hours, and motorcycle is very turbulent, so it goes like this, so the hand is also moving like this, and the hook of the hamate will be touching the bombarding, or it is striking the ulnar nerve for 4 to 6 hours journey in a fixed position and triggering this. So this lead to the numbness of 1.5 finger when he or she will got down from the motorcycle. But they feel that 1.5 fingers, they are not the part of the human body. So this is called again, this is the compressive neuropathy of the ulnar nerve because of the hook of the hamate, because it lies very, very close. Now let us see the fate of the artery and the nerve, ulnar nerve, what happens to them into the palm. The ulnar nerve coming into the palm, and superficially it gives two branches, two cutaneous or sensory branches, which supply the 1.5 medial fingers. So this is sensory branch. Then it has got a lateral motor branch. But before the ulnar nerve enters into the palm, 5 centimeters above, while it is present in the forearm, it gives a dorsal digital branch. 5 centimeters proximal to the wrist, it gives a dorsal digital branch of ulnar nerve. Its name is dorsal digital. It is clear that it will go, this branch is sensory, and it will go on the dorsum of the skin, and it will supply the digits. That's the name is dorsal digital. But how many fingers? That is very, very important. On the palmar side, it supplies 1.5 fingers, but note down and underline. On the dorsum side, it supplies 2.5. 2.5 skin of the medial or the ulnar side of the dorsum of the hand is under the supply of ulnar nerve. 2.5. So in the dorsum there is a formula of 2.5 and 2.5. The medial 2.5 by the ulnar nerve and lateral 2.5 by radial nerve. You have to look. So draw and label, question comes, draw and label the cutaneous innervation of the hand, and you have to make two diagrams. One is on the dorsum, other is the palm, and you have to make the formula of 3.5, 1.5, 2.5 and 2.5. And the medial nerve is supplies the nail beds. Nail beds on the dorsum side, because nail beds they are all dorsal. That you have to practice the diagram showing the cutaneous or sensory nerve supply of the skin of the hand. Then the ulnar artery. So the ulnar artery then comes into the palm and it gives the digital branches. And after giving the digital branches to the little finger and the ring finger, this artery comes on the lateral side or radial side. So in the palm we are using the radial and ulnar side is more appropriate than the lateral and medial. So then this artery turns on the radial side and it forms an arc. This is called the superficial palmar arterial arc. Its name is superficial palmar arterial arc. And this arc will give the metatarsal and the distal branches and the perforating branches, which also supply the dorsal and the palmar interossei. Then this artery goes on the left side, on the radial side, and this arc is completed by a superficial branch of the radial artery, comes into the palm over the thinner eminence, and it joins or anastomoses with the terminal branch of the ulnar artery. So this arc is now completed by the superficial branch of the radial artery. And now this arc is formed because the superficial palmar arterial arc made for the arterial supply to the palmar side of the superficial segment. Then we are eager to see what is the fate of the radial artery. As you know, radial artery is very much popularly known as the pulse artery. So pulse is very much felt from the radial artery because it lies just in front of the radius bone. And nothing is intervening between the bone and the artery, so it is directly touching the bone. So the complete pulsation of the artery can be clearly felt. That is called the pulse of the person. So that is used, but this radial artery, like ulnar artery, doesn't enter directly into the palm. It goes laterally or radial side. It diverts after giving superficial branch to complete this superficial palmar arch. This radial artery doesn't enter into the palm directly. It will go from the lower end to the radius. Before the wrist crease, it goes laterally. And here, it goes into a anatomical snuff box. It enters into the anatomical snuff box. So if you make the thumbs up, tufani thanda. So if you like this, see there is a depression. This is called the anatomical snuff box. So in the old time, a snuff is a powder. The grannies used to put here and they smell it. That is called the snuff box, anatomical snuff box. That's why the name. So when you fully extend your thumb, see there are tendons are prominent. If you feel by the tip of your finger, on radial side you feel there are 2 tendons. But on the other side there is only 1 tendon. And you have to remember the boundaries of the anatomical snuff box. The lateral one, the medial one, on other side the tendon which is single. See, you can see it going where it disappears just at the base of the terminal pharynx. So this will be longest, number 1. It is going into thumb, it will be polysis. And if what is the action it is done by it? Extensor polysis longus. This is extension. Thumbs up sign is the full extension of the thumb. So the medial boundary of the snuff box is formed by the extensor polysis longus. Then see on the radial side you feel the 2 fingers, 2 tendons. One is thin and one is almost they are equal. Out of the 2, one is the extensor polysis brevis, because it is going to the base of the problem. Extensor polysis brevis, and the most radial one or most lateral one tendon is the abductor polysis brevis. Abductor polysis, because it do the abduction. So that you have to remember the boundaries of the anatomical snuff box. Another thing about the anatomical snuff box, when you go dip your tip of your finger in the anatomical snuff box, what do you feel? Which bone you feel? S for snuff box, S for scaphoid. The formula she looks to start from S, scaphoid. So that is you have to know. Another thing about the scaphoid is very important to be noted. This is the only bone in the human body. What is the characteristic feature? That whenever its fracture occurs, the fracture line will appear in the X-ray after 1 month. Right now. 1 month. Immediately you take the X-ray, patient is having very much pain at the snuff box because the scaphoid bone is there. But if you take the X-ray, no fracture line. Why? Because fracture line appears after 1 month because of the avascular necrosis. Avascular necrosis of the scaphoid bone. If you isolate the scaphoid bone, see the scaphoid bone, the shape. Hourglass like. Or a female, 35, 36, 35. So this is the notorious about this bone and notorious about this size, 35, 45, 35. Actually the nutrient artery of this bone enters from its waist. Yes, it is called waist. Bone is also not shaft, it is called waist, like the female. So the nutrient artery enters into the scaphoid bone at the base of the bone. And which is the point of the fracture most common in the scaphoid bone? Narrowest point is the deep point. So fracture occurs at the very base of the scaphoid bone and artery is liable to be crushed between the fragments of the bone. That lead to the, whenever the arterial supply is occluded or obstructed to any part, any tissue of the body, that is called avascular necrosis. What is the myocardial infarction? Coronary arteries, they are obstructed. What they lead to the myocardial necrosis. Avascular necrosis. Oxygen supply is occluded. Without oxygen, is a life gas. Tissues cannot survive. So it leads to the avascular necrosis, but it is a very slow process. Because surrounding arteries are also there, which anastomose freely, not coronary arteries, which are end arteries. So it is a slow process of the avascular necrosis. After 1 month, a fracture line will appear. So that is not worries about the scaphoid fracture, you should know. Then this radial artery then dips into the snuff box and it will again appear into the palm. Not directly, but sideways. And it appears in the palm between the base of the gap between the base of the first and the second metacarpus. Here, this is the base of the first metacarpus and the second. So here this artery will appear. Again come into the palm. But now it is very deep in position. It is very deep. It is touching the anterior surface of the metacarpal bones. And it also goes medially. And it also form an arc. But this arc is called the deep palmar arterial arc. This is from the not superficial, it is called the deep palmar arterial arch. So two arches are formed in the palm to ensure the good blood supply to the structures of the hand, the tendons and synovial membrane. So that is called the deep is formed by radial artery and superficial is formed by. Now this radial artery comes here. Then the ulnar artery will give a deep branch which will complete the deep plantar arterial arc. So vice versa. If the radial artery is helping to form the superficial arc, the ulnar artery is now helping the radial artery to complete the deep palmar arterial arc, and then it will give the same perforating branches, the metatarsal branches, which supply the deeper structures, bones as well as the muscles. So that is the plate of the structures entering from the forearm into the arm, into the hand. Now comes the intrinsic muscle. Intrinsic muscle, there are two types. One is called the some side called the thinner muscles. Thinner muscle. And towards the little finger is called the hypothenar. Hypothenar muscle. The thinner muscle, the names they are abductor pollicis brevis. Then flexor pollicis brevis. Third is opponens pollicis. And fourth is the adductor pollicis. The name of the hypothenar muscles, there are only three. One is the abductor digiti minimi. Digiti minimi means minimum. Then opponens digiti minimi. And then flexor digiti minimi. So these are the muscles. So whenever you see the palm, below the thumb you see there is the elevation. We call it thinner eminence. And just below the little finger, a small elevation is seen. This is called the hypothenar eminence. So if you go to some astrologer, he will tell something else about what is this and what is this. But being an anatomical, we know this is higher. Why? Because it lies 4 muscles. It is lower because it is having 3 muscles. But astrologer has got the other story to tell you. Why this is prominent and why it is not prominent. Another thing is the small muscle is there here on the medial aspect of the metatarsal, the fifth. This is called the palmaris brevis. As the palmaris longest we have done. So palmaris brevis is also present. It is present on the, it is superficial muscle. It lies just below the skin, medially, and inserting on, originating from the skin and the inserting on the skin. Origin is here and the insertion is within the skin. So it is a subcutaneous muscle. And the nerve supply of this muscle is dorsal digital branch that we have done. Same dorsal digital branch which has become sensory but first it becomes motor and supply the palmaris brevis muscle. And what is the action of this palmaris brevis? When you flex the wrist, there are wrinkles are present. These wrinkles are because of the small stem size muscle that is called the palmaris brevis. Again, the astrologers will tell about these, how many affairs you are having, the lines you are having. That is their story. But we as anatomy, we tell that is only wrinkles are produced because of the subcutaneous nature, because it is inserted on the skin. And what is the action? Protection. It is a shock absorber. God knows that the human will do like this so many times. So when you strike your hand against the hard object, who is protecting the fracture of your fifth metacarpal? Palmaris. That is the palmaris brevis, small muscle but very much effective. Supply is very important. Dorsal digital branch is the nerve supply of the other branch. Branch is very important. So now comes the original insertion of these muscles. Only names are very sufficient. Now any movement of the fingers or the thumb, we take the middle finger as the standard. Any finger or the thumb, if moved towards this middle finger, is called adduction. Away from abduction. See, when I am doing adduction and abduction, is this this finger is moving? So it has got a minimal, so that's why we take it as standard for the movements of the fingers, adduction and. Now who is doing the adduction? And who is doing the abduction? They are done by the interossei. The muscles between the metacarpal is called the interossei. And there are two types of the interossei, dorsal interossei and palmar interossei. So they are also the intrinsic muscles. So they are all intrinsic. For the dorsal interossei, you have to remember a formula throughout your life. Write down in bold letter, capital. For dorsal is the depth, and for palmar we have to write down the word pad. Dab and pad. Where is your pen and copy? So two words you have to use, dab and the pad. P for palmar interossei. And these two second words, what they are telling, their action. So palmar interossei, they will do the adduction of the finger. And what are the action of the dorsal interossei? They will do the abduction. So that is formula, dab and pat. This is applicable to the foot also. You won't repeat it. So both for the hands and the foot, the action is the same. So reciprocally, the origin of these muscles will be according to their action. Now come the thinner, the hypothenar muscle. First muscle is the thumb side. First muscle is the abductor pollicis brevis. Means if this thumb will be, what is abduction? Abductor pollicis brevis. And what is the flexion? This flexion. Opposite? Extension. So flexion, extension, adduction and abduction. So adduction and abduction, they are on the same plane. While the flexion and extension, they are on the different 90 degrees. That you have to remember about the action of these movements of the thumb. So abductor pollicis brevis. So this muscle will take, it has to do the abduction away from this. So this muscle has to be inserted from the flexor retinaculum. Plus adjoining part of the trapezium body, trapezium bone, which is available here. So this muscle comes, goes laterally and inserted on base of proximal phalanx because they are small muscles. So this is the abductor pollicis brevis. Then you have to do the flexion upwards. So where you have to originate from here. Anterior aspect of the flexor retinaculum is the origin of the flexor pollicis brevis. And where you insert? On the proximal phalanx. Never on the terminal, is already booked for the pollicis longus. Small muscles, they only go to the proximal phalanx. Or middle, but never. Flexor and abductor. And from the shaft of the first metacarpal is the opponent's pollicis. So this muscle is inserted on base of the proximal. Opponent's. Then comes the adductor pollicis. So you have to bring the thumb like this. So this muscle for adduction of the thumb, this will be taking origin from the third metacarpal. The origin of this transverse head of the adductor. There are two heads, transverse and oblique. Transverse head will take origin from the palmar surface of the third metacarpal, and it will be converged toward the base of proximal phalanx. So this is the adductor pollicis pyramid. When this muscle will contract, where the thumb will move. That is the adductor. Another is the oblique head. The oblique head is taking origin from the metacarpus, capitate trapezoid, and adjoining part of the base of the third metacarpal. And this oblique nature is called the oblique head. This also head comes and also meets with this. Both oblique and transverse head unitely insert on the ulnar side of the base of the proximal phalanx. Oblique and transverse head of adductor pollicis. Then same on the distal minimi. So we want to abduction of the little finger. So from here you have to do the origin from the medial border of the flexor and the bone. And which bone is available here? Hamate. And comes and inserted on the proximal phalanx on the ulnar side. This is the abductor distal minimi because it will bring the abduction away from. Then it will continue. Then flexion. So for flexion you have to originate from the front side of the flexor and abdomen. And it will be inserted on the proximal phalanx. So the flexor distal minimi. Then from the shaft, opponents, distal minimi inserted first. So what is the opponents? Action of opponents means when you count the fingers like this. When your fingertip and the thumb becomes opposite to each other. Which muscle is bringing this movement? Opponents pollicis and opponents distal. The opposition is there. Name of the muscle, opponents. So this is the origin, insertion and action of the muscle. Now last comes the nerve supply. Now toward the thumb, the ulnar side, which nerve is near?
Ulnar nerve.
So ulnar nerve will come. Already given the 1.5 finger. Now its motor branch will dip into the hypothenar muscle, supplies abductor distal minimi, flexor distal minimi, and opponent distal. After supplying these three muscles of the hypothenar eminence, now this branch of the ulnar nerve reaches the deep part, deep surface in front of the metacarpus and will supply all the palmar introstate. This is called the deep branch of the ulnar nerve. Then this ulnar nerve will also give the perforating branches. And these perforating branches will dip and come from the dorsal side to supply 4 dorsal introchea also. So all palmar and dorsal introchea are supplied by the deep branch of the ulnar nerve. After supplying so many muscles, still one muscle is left. So this nerve will go into the transverse and the oblique head of the adductor pollicis and it will terminate by supplying adductor pollicis. So that is the fate of ulnar nerve, starting from the funny nerve behind the medial epicondyle, and this is termination. So it supplies so many small intrinsic muscles of the hand. So it is also called musician's nerve. Musicians for the flute as well as the guitar, sitar, and the harmonium. See all the movements of these movements under the ulnar nerve. That's why it's called the musician's nerve. The fine movements of the finger is under the control of
Ulnar nerve.
now the thinner muscle. Now which nerve is near? Median nerve. Coming out of the flexor retinaculum. Now it gives the 3.5 fingers for sensory branch. So 3.5 fingers are supplied under the median nerve. After supplying, giving the 3.5 finger, then this ulnar nerve will have got a recurrent course. It was marching only towards the 3.5 finger, and she was considering that I have to supply only 3.5 finger, but she came to know that I have to supply the 300 muscles also. Then she will return back towards the 3 muscles and supplies by hand. So it is going from the front to the back. It is not the recurrent course of the motor branch. Recurrent means against the flow. So this is how we do the muscles of the hand.